Am I here? I think I'm here. I don't know what happened, guys. I'm so sorry. I just got shut off right in the middle of talking, but I think we're up now, and it even looks like the previous video is already back, with literally no views on it. But it's there on the uploads and my podcast episodes playlist. So I'm here. Can I be seen? Make sure this is working. Am I here? Yeah. All right. There I am. All right, we're back. I don't know what happened. It looked like I was just stalled there. I didn't realize it probably until about a minute or so after I was flapping my gums. And it said the stream was shut down for violating YouTube's guidelines or something like that, or copyright. I'm like, there's no copyright. It's me running my mouth. So I immediately filed the appeal, and it looks like it's already reinstated the video. But that means that stream is over, and if I want to continue talking, I have to start a second stream. So we're going to wrap things up here. I just didn't want to leave you guys hanging like that and not come back at all. So we'll keep an eye on this and make sure nothing else bad happens. But that was weird. That's a first. I've never had that happen before. So I don't know if that was some asshole flagging it or whatever, but it's not going to do anything. Like they're not going to shut you down for a bogus flag, you know? So if anything, it just causes us a little hiccup. But I don't know. I also know, though, that YouTube's been funny lately, and they've been having some issues, and I even had my Winged Eagle podcast from the previous week, not last week, but the week before, still is not showing up on my uploads. Like, it never finished processing. It's just not there. It's on the playlist that I put it in, but it's not in the upload. It's just really weird. And so some people have been saying that they have been having issues with YouTube lately. It's been a little temperamental. It's been glitchy. So I don't know if this is part of it or not. I don't know what the hell this is even all about. But anyway, we're back now. I don't even know where I got cut off. I'm guessing it was talking about the UWF stuff. But I was pretty much done. We only had a couple of other things to talk about anyway before we wrapped it up. But I certainly didn't want to leave you guys hanging like that. So I think what we'll do here is we'll wrap up any more notes that I have. We'll hang out in the chat a little bit and try to hang out here for just a little bit and put a few minutes on this stream, and then we will shut it down. I want to apologize to all you guys for that happening. I apologize for Dre for Black Thursday. That's exactly what this is. Apologize for all that happening. But I was like, at first, I'm like, when I saw the copyright thing, I'm like, oh shit, is it going to prevent me from doing streams? But everything was fine. I just immediately put the video back up. So I don't know what that was about or whatever. But, you know, in the end, we always survive here on this channel. We ain't scared. Probably the hacker. Oh, there you are. How easy. Good to see you. Thanks for the $2. What? We back up. Yes, we are. How'd you get the Big E video? Oh, we had lunch the other day. We were just chilling out. I'm like, hey, you want to do a YouTube video for me? He's like, hell yeah, I do. And so we went over to his house, and I filmed him right in his kitchen. No, of course, I paid for it. But I thought it would be cool. I got a whole bunch of them. I'll probably put them out every now and then for intros. But I thought it would be fun to kind of change things up. And I've got a new, musical intro that I'm just about done. I just have to film, 2 things for it. And I've just been procrastinating. So I got a couple of other cosmetic things coming to the channel. But anyway, we're back. I don't know what happened, Curtis, but we're back now. Hey, Devlin. Were you here earlier for all the nonsense? Oh, yeah. I remember when WWE took down my 6-hour video, but at least that was my fault. You know, I put in video footage and everything there. So that had to be expected, even though I cropped it down super small. I didn't use any volume. I wasn't showing matches. I was just, using it as B-roll. And it was enough, though, to get the video taken down. So I eventually re-uploaded the whole thing about a year later, just using still images. And the video is still up to this day, but it doesn't have the 250,000 views that the first one did. But yeah, it's happened to a couple of times. Most times it's kind of been my own fault. This had nothing to do with me. It's just my face on a TV screen. That's it. Anyway, thanks, Victor. Appreciate the $2. It's not your fault. That was YouTube. That was BS. It was, man. Oh, good, Devlin. You just got off work. Yeah, well, we were going about an hour and 20 minutes, and right in the middle of me talking, the stream got shut down for a copyright thing. And so I scrambled, put up a second part here to resume discussing what we're talking about. And that's it. It was very strange, something that's never happened before, but it was a very, very fast fix. Within seconds, I had it worked out. So anyway, we're back. We got sabotage. It's almost like back in the early days of the live streams, my cat Tito, back before I rewired my computer to prevent this, I had my power strips kind of down here on the floor. and he was just laying there rolling around, and he rolled right on the power button and shut down all 3 of my computers, my lights, right in the middle of the live stream. Just completely shut it down. So I had to fire everything back up and put together another quick live stream and come up here. So we haven't had an issue like that since Tito shutting us down back in the day. Yeah, we talked a lot about the Texas stuff and world class and all of that. Greg Lancaster got into that a little bit earlier on in the part 1 of the live stream, which you can find on the channel now. And I'll throw a link down here once we're done if I leave this up. But yeah, I talked the big match between Flair and Kerry Von Erich in Texas Stadium and the whole tribute to David and the whole deal. Yeah, a lot of stuff. A lot of great stuff back then, especially, like I said, like I've been talking about throughout this entire stream, especially in those southern states, man. They were something else. Appreciate you guys get those likes up as much as you can. I think the first video has about 200 views on it, so not many at all, but what can you do? It's a live stream about wrestling territories. I'll try to update these thumbnails too when I'm done, so it doesn't look like I have 2 of the same video up here, but yeah, that is very strange. Very, very weird. But anyway, we survive like always. Oh, you remember that, Michael? Yeah, that was crazy. YouTube got mad at your friends? I don't care if YouTube gets mad at me. I just don't want them taking down any of my shit, especially when I'm not doing anything wrong. We did have the problem, though. It was an AEW show. It was right in the beginning of... no, it wasn't AEW. It was a WWE pay-per-view. I don't remember what it was, but I did a review of a pay-per-view, and then the next day it was taken down due to copyright. And I think it gave me like a strike, and I had luckily Sean Ross Sapp, Joe Cronin, a couple of people reached out to me with names in WWE of who to contact, and I did, and within a day or 2, they had cleared it up. So we've had a couple of hiccups, but none of them have done any damage to the channel in the long run. It's just been more of an inconvenience than anything else. Kind of like wearing a mask. And I just thought about this, too. I've randomly got, like, 3 zits on my face, and I don't usually get zits. I got, like, 2 on my chin and 1 on my lip, and I'm like, why I got these zits? And then it hit me. I think it's my mask. I think I got some zits on my face because of my mask, so I'll start wearing more or changing them out or something like that. It's got to be from that. Otherwise, either that or I'm back in high school again with all sorts of acne. I don't know. Oh, okay, I gotcha. Trekopedia. Zane, yeah, my plan this week to do Extreme Rules prediction will be on Saturday. It'll be kind of tied in with the Winged Eagle podcast. And then on Sunday, I'm actually going to live react to Extreme Rules. I thought it would be fun because we've got the Swamp match, we've got the Eye for an Eye match, and we've got the other one. The hell's the other one? Whatever it is, it looks like it has potential to be weird. So I thought it might be fun to react to and come up here and hang out on Sunday night and watch the pay-per-view together. So that's the plan. You'll get me Saturday and Sunday this weekend. That'll be fun. But anyway, I was pretty much, when we got cut off from part 1, I was just wrapping up my thoughts on Mid-South, some of my memories of that, and what a fun territory I thought it was. And I think the only reason why, they didn't have more success or didn't last any longer is just because WWE was too strong. But I felt like they were doing a few things right, and there was a couple things that, that Bill Watts had a good eye for. I've never been like a huge Bill Watts fan, but there, as far as the handling of Mid-South, he did some stuff. He did some fun, entertaining shit down there. So he deserves a little bit of credit for that. Plus, he also had the book in WCW and in WWE for a short time. So he definitely has the experience and the know-how. And he wasn't a horrible wrestler back in his day either. Pretty tough bastard. Other than that, there's no other territories that I'm going to get to that in depth. Only a couple that I wanted to mention. One is St. Louis, which was kind of like another hotbed. And that's, where Harley Race was stationed, and they had their big Wrestling at the Chase TV show for years there. And, you saw like Harley and Gene Kiniski and Dory Funk and Dick the Bruiser and all those guys there. That was kind of like basically the St. Louis office of the NWA. Ran for about a quarter century, 25 years or so. So I felt like, St. Louis Wrestling Club and Sam Mushnick and those guys deserved to at least be mentioned, primarily just because of Harley Race. I've also mentioned Portland several times. Portland is another favorite territory that I kind of like watching footage of because it's interesting. And Don Owen was like a really, really respected promoter. Piper, even famously, after coming out of there, wouldn't work in Portland, wouldn't even wrestle against him just because of all the help that he gave him and, breaking him into the business and stuff like that. But the Pacific Northwest, guys like Billy Jack Haynes came out of there. Roddy Piper, Matt Bourne, who I mentioned earlier on, who was actually, he went into Mid-South and won the tags with DiBiase, I think. They were tag team champions there. And I've always said that Bourne was kind of like Matt Bourne, by the way, would go on to become Doink as well, or the original Doink. But Matt Bourne, to me, was such a bad knockoff of Piper. Like, I thought he tried way too hard to be Piper. Like it's one thing to pattern yourself after someone like Benoit did with Dynamite Kid, so it's not like it's that bad or whatever, but, you know, his promo style, I'm like, you're ripping Piper off. You know, he's like, he literally sounds exactly like him, the way he talks, the way he breathes, everything. I'm like, do you have to copy everything? I always found that annoying with Matt Bourne, but when he became Doink, then that was awesome. He should have stayed that way. I think he had too many problems there. But like I said, also, you know, Iceman King Parsons and Chris Adams were up there. They were sent down to Texas during like a talent exchange and everything. So Portland had some big names come through there, and so did San Francisco, you know, with Roy Shire, and they were big time. And big time wrestling was all over. Big time wrestling was in Texas. Big time wrestling was in Portland. Big time wrestling was in Detroit. And there's two other big time wrestling, so they were everywhere. But the San Francisco version, you know, they ran primarily out of the Cow Palace, and that's where the Maivias, you know, Rocky or The Rock's grandfather, Ray Stevens, also real big in, and Pat Patterson in San Francisco, Superstar Billy Graham and Don Morocco, Playboy Buddy Rose, Andre, you know, everybody was through there. So the Pacific Northwest deserves some love. I grew up so far away from that area. I'm closer to it now, being on the West Coast, that I wasn't aware of anything really going on then until I became an adult and started reading a little bit more about those territories and stuff. So I felt they deserved, you know, just a little bit of a mention here, if anything else. Down in the South, Alabama, Florida, Continental Championship Wrestling, not to be confused with Jerry Lawler or with Memphis's Continental Wrestling Association. This was run by the Fullers. You know, Ron Fuller was the brother of Robert Fuller. Robert Fuller was Colonel Parker in WCW, Tennessee Lee in WWE, and they were just big, tough Southern boys. You know, they ran Alabama, they ran Florida, they ran Tennessee. You'd see the Moondogs down there, the Fullers, Ron Bass, Ox Baker, Kevin Sullivan, Randy Savage and Lanny Poffo, Ann Angelo all came through there. Dutch Mantell, Jim Cornette, Eddie Gilbert, Ken Patera, Pez Watley. That was a kind of a fun little area too, and plus it was in the South, and you know, the baby faces were just super over, you know, in the South because of the way they booked the heels and everything. So, you know, that was a fun territory too. You know, in the big time in Detroit, you know, even though I was born in Michigan, I never saw any big time wrestling that I remember on TV, and they ran Cobo Hall, which I'd been to a bunch of times for other events. But as a kid, I have zero memories of the original Sheik and big time wrestling in Detroit. Don't know why. I'm sure I had it on some channel somewhere in my life. I just never saw it. So somehow I managed to see WWF and AWA up there, but never any big time when I was growing up in Michigan. Don't know why. Wish I could go back in time and figure that out. But anyway, some of those promotions had definitely some interesting things and some interesting matches, and were a big part of the territory system back in the day. You know, those were, I mean, and I don't know if I'm leaving anybody out, but when I think of all the hotbeds and all the territories, you know, I think of the Pacific Northwest. I think of Florida. I think of, you know, the Gulf area. I think of St. Louis. I think of Texas. I think of Minneapolis, Calgary, New York, and of course, the Carolinas. And I think we hit most of those territories here, and what they all had to offer and the differences between them all. And I think that's, you know, what helped make the territory system work, and what helps it hold up now for people and historians who like to go back and look at this stuff. There really are, you know, it doesn't feel the same. You know, wrestling now, even with WWE and AEW, still it's really the same. It's still the ramp. It's still the big screen. It's still the announcers. It's still set up the same general way. And, you know, wrestling was in a lot of ways then too, but the styles were different. The styles were vastly different in Minneapolis than it was in Florida, and that's what was cool about it. And then as a wrestler, you could go and work all these different territories and work all these different fan bases, and that had to be an incredible high. That had to be really fun for a lot of, you know, a lot of the talent, just passing through all the territories, and you know, it was probably a nightmare too, dealing with each individual promoter and all their little, you know, weird shit that they do, but overall, just the experience you got, the different styles you worked, the different opponents you worked, and the different audiences you worked in front of is why a lot of these legends are the legends they are, and why you don't get that same type of training and teaching now. Now it's turned into like a training camp, like a football camp, where you train with trainers and in a gym, and you do all this shit. Back in the day, you were just in a car, sleeping on the floor and getting no sleep and driving 150 miles to the next town just to wrestle again and never stopping. And you didn't have time for performance center shit. You were just on the road eating fast food and wrestling. And that was it. Probably smoking and drinking too, knowing some of these guys. But yeah. The West Texas college football guys. At least 3, right? We're in there. It's kind of like up in Minnesota, all the Robbinsdale guys. It was like Rick Rude, Perfect. There's like 3 Brock, X-Pac, Road Warriors, I think, came out of there, or they came out of Chicago. Like a lot of guys came out of like one little high school. It was like really bizarre. And Texas had the same type of thing. Yeah, the territories, they did season wrestlers, especially if you hadn't been working too long. And if you can hit every corner of the country, in your first 3 years, that's an incredible amount of knowledge that you've absorbed there in that short amount of time. Yeah, the Freebirds were the best. I mean, because they had some babyface runs too, but their heel runs were the best, and the Von Erich rivalry was quite good. Who's bigger, Lanny Poffo or Colonel Parker? Bigger physically or bigger star? I don't know. Maybe that's a tie. That might be a tie. Yeah, and if you notice too, Curtis mentions the Fullers, the first family of wrestling. I didn't mention a whole lot of families other than like really the Harts, because the Harts, Stampede is the only non-United States territory we talked about. We briefly touched on Maple Leaf, but I stayed away from like the Guerreros in Mexico, stayed away from the Colones in Puerto Rico and stuff, because I was just kind of sticking to the territories here and the way this country was divided up. But, we could talk about Mexico. We could talk about Japan. We could talk about Montreal and Toronto. We could talk about Puerto Rico. I guess Puerto Rico's technically considered a territory, but that's a whole story for another time. We all know what happened down there with Brody, and there was always money to be made down there in Puerto Rico. Everybody went there. That was a regular stop. Ew. Ordering hot water and putting ketchup in it. Some actually did that. That's nasty. Julian, I thought about talking about Smoky Mountain. I just felt like they came along a little late. Territories were not totally dead, but they were dead, kind of thing, by the time Cornette started Smoky Mountain, because now we're into the 90s and things are very, very different. And at first I had Smoky Mountain on my list just because there was some affiliation with WWE there, and a lot of WWE guys worked there, like Chris and Tammy came out of there. Kane worked there as Unabomb. Jericho and Lance Storm were the thrill seekers, unless they were hurt and they could only seek half the amount of thrills, as Jim Cornette puts it. But I opted not to talk about them just because I've kind of felt like it was past the prime of the territory days. But Smoky Mountain was awesome. NWA, everything we've talked about is NWA. All these territories, most of them anyway, other than a couple, were under the NWA umbrella. And but most people kind of lump in like NWA as a territory, probably with Mid-Atlantic, because that's what eventually, became WCW and all that shit. But the NWA still exists. It was on YouTube up until a few months ago, prior to the pandemic and a whole bunch of other shit that happened to them. But, the way the companies have changed ownerships and changed directions over the years and stuff, it really gets a little murky there when you're trying to really define who these territories are and stuff. But I think a lot of people probably associate the NWA with the Carolinas, even though St. Louis and everywhere else was still under the umbrella. But yeah, man, good times, and just a different way of operating back then, because there was no internet, there was no anything. You didn't have phones, you didn't have ways to access information, and if you wanted to watch a specific match, you had to go out and hunt for it, which was virtually impossible unless the match was released commercially on a VHS tape or something and you could physically buy it in a catalog or a store. Otherwise, you got to hope that some schmuck in this world hit record on his VCR and recorded some of this TV. Otherwise, there was just no way to get it unless you bought it, traded for it, and shit like that. And that's what he did. If I would have known in the 90s when I was putting so much effort into getting my hands on footage that it would be with a click of my one finger, if I just was patient to wait, another 10 years, I would have waited. But, it was just different back then. Now you can just watch everything. All these promotions, all their TV shows, I'm certain they're all over YouTube. You can probably, anything we talked about here today, you can probably look it up and find it and find great matches, especially like Mid-South stuff. That stuff's all over YouTube. You can find some really good shit there, and probably some AWA stuff too. So if any of the stuff that we talked about tonight interested you at all, I encourage you, go watch interviews, go watch old matches, go watch old stories or just histories of these promotions, because I'm sure you can find a history of these promotions everywhere, whether it be via interview or, something like that, or maybe some of the other YouTubers, have done, just full reviews on these promotions and their full histories and all of that. That might be a little more fun if you want to go and dive deeper into these individual territories. But there are so many to get into. I wanted to just kind of gloss over a lot because we couldn't get into everything because we had 13 different territories we talked about tonight, something like that. So it was a lot to get into. So I knew that we couldn't spend a ton of time talking about every match. And plus, a lot of times I forget a lot of the stuff and I'm just going by my memory here. I just stayed up last night and then a lot today prior to the stream, just typing down anything I could think of and didn't really fact check anything here. So hopefully I was right on some of these dates and time periods and stuff like that. Not sure, but all in all, it was fun. I thought it was fun. I don't want to get out of here already since this stream has only been going on for 21 minutes, but I also did not want to leave you guys hanging. Billy Corgan, he purchased the remnants of what is left of the NWA, pretty much the name and the property. But that's all he gets. He doesn't get any TV time. He doesn't get any former previous footage or tape libraries. That's all under WWE. There's only a couple of libraries WWE doesn't have. They got pretty much all of them. But it's a shame. I mean, a lot of us had high hopes for the resurrection of the NWA and the studio wrestling that they did that was airing on YouTube, that was getting a lot of views. People were enjoying it. It was just a nice, happy, positive corner of the wrestling world because it's filled with so much negativity and fighting. I saw that today. I stayed silent. I didn't give a shit to tweet anything today when the ratings came out for last night with NXT and AEW, because it's another one of those what the fuck weeks. WWE randomly won a couple of weeks ago by like 150,000. You're like, that's weird. And then they went on to win the next 2 weeks. So then they're on a 3-week winning streak. And then last night they got pretty much demolished by AEW again, right out of the blue. So watching the fans all bite each other's heads off over this shit, I'm like, I'm not even getting involved. I don't care. Congrats to AEW when you win. Congrats to NXT when you win. And if the fans want to tear each other apart, go right ahead. I get the same sort of vibe on ratings day on Twitter from the wrestling fans that I do like when you're in a grocery store during a pandemic and assholes are buying up all the toilet paper. You just see what truly shitty human beings people are. And it took me about 5 minutes to scroll through Twitter today. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to stay out of that because that does not look fun and it looks totally pointless. Just what a crazy thing to bicker about. But anywho, it's all about the demos, the demo god. Jericho, like a lot of people are like criticizing Jericho for like talking about the demos. I'm not. I kind of think it's funny. I think Jericho's just trolling, just being himself. A lot of people are like, oh, Jericho's bitter or whatever. I think he's just fucking with you, man. And plus he's a heel and he's funny and I have no problem with him bringing it up. And I think they got a shirt out now. It has like Jericho's face and it says demo god. I love that. I fucking love that. You see like Meltzer and Alvarez falling all over themselves to stress the importance of the demo. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about the demo. I don't care. Whoever wins, and I'm happy either way. Don't care. I have no reason to try to push, who I'm rooting for because I don't care. And I don't know why the fans do either. Oh, I see. Yeah, Dre, and that I can understand that totally because WWE, and Dre is saying here in the chat, I remember as a kid, I used to love all the documentaries WWE put out. That's why the territories have always been interesting to me. They've done great ones. They've done, the WCW and the NWA. They've done WCCW like we talked about. They've done ECW even. The AWA DVD is fantastic. I'm sure there's more now like on the WWE network that they've released and stuff. And you can find all sorts of histories on the promotions that's not done by WWE with their revisionist history done by actual researchers and wrestling historians and stuff. So if you want to learn about these territories, it's relatively easy now. And I'm glad that WWE got you interested in that, because I think a lot of young fans, today, their idea of what wrestling is completely different from the generation previously. They're used to, Titantrons and Pyro and Attitude Eras and Monday night shows and 3-hour deals and all this stuff. Back when wrestling was so much more simple, and title matches and title changes were so few and far between, and they were saved up and built up for big paydays and big payoffs, and storylines had substance and they meant something and you felt it, and time was put in. And a lot of times, you'd have the entire angle, booked out prior to even starting. And those were the type of angles that felt more real, because you had so much more time to, I don't know, just get into character and get behind it as a wrestler too, and just try to draw money, because back then that's all it was about. It was about drawing money, putting people in those seats and getting that house. Every wrestler worked the territories. What's the house? What's the house? They want to know what the payday is, and they'd fucking be figuring out on their calculator, what am I getting paid for this show? Based on, what's out there and what they paid and all of that. So that was very, very important. And the way you brought people into the building a lot of times was to talk them into the building. So you had to get all that done in your buildup, in your angles, and in your promos. And that's why a lot of them were so personal. And that's why a lot of them, especially in the South, dealt with a lot of the patriotic stuff, dealt with a lot of the family angles. It was always about, somebody's family member getting attacked, or somebody's patriotism getting attacked, or either that or somebody would get severely injured, burned, blinded, stabbed. It was always something like that every time. They knew like where to go storyline wise to really hook you as an audience. Where now, what are they fighting over on SmackDown? Karaoke contests? Come on. Give me back when the Horsemen took that railroad spike and they jammed it through Dusty's eye and he was bleeding. He had the eye patch and everything. Give me that. Well, I guess we are getting that, aren't we? We are getting that with Mysterio and Seth Rollins, but just done to a little bit more hokey level. I don't think they would have actually removed someone's eyeball in a match in the. Actually, although they would have, they might have. They might not use the CGI stuff we're going to see on Sunday or whatever they're going to do with Seth and Ray, but I could actually probably see that. Who was it that was it JYD? Somebody was blinded. I can't remember the angle. It was definitely in the South, and I think it was with Junkyard Dog. Got fucking acid in his eyes or something like that. They were doing crazy shit back then, and you believed it, man. And sometimes, we've heard Cornette tell stories in multiple shoot interviews, just working crazy crowds in the South. And, and the heels winning and fans trying to fight them and stuff and attacking them. And, one guy pulling out guns, pulling out knives, having damn near riots because the heels have so much heat that the wrestling audience wants to literally murder them. That didn't last for very long. Probably last time I've ever seen heat like that was pretty late, actually, 90. I go 96, the NWO, all the shit they were throwing in the ring and stuff. I mean, that was last time I remember the fans actually wanting to get their hands on the wrestlers. Nobody had heat like that ever again. But that NWO heat that they got at their formation, that was a regular thing, in the territory days, especially in the South. You saw it all the time. Absolutely crazy. Oh, man. But anyway, anything else we should discuss before I head up on out of here? Again, I apologize for the hiccup there. Part 1 getting shut down and us having to start up part 2. Oh, I love Dutch Mantell. Dutch Mantell's great, and he's super, super, super smart. I like Dutch as a wrestler, as a manager, and probably he's most valuable booking-wise, I think. He just gets it, because he's been everywhere, man. It's another guy that worked every territory, and he worked a lot in the South, a lot of Puerto Rico and shit, so he knows, how to do angles like that. Oh, yeah. So Dre is sponsor of our video. He's 24. Yeah, so you grew up Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression. So this is way, way, way before you, where I was just a little kid. Like I said, most of my memories of the promotions was reading. Like all I did as a kid is because all I got is my hour or two, whatever I got per week on TV from wherever I happened to live. The rest was wrestling magazines. I would just read these things twice each. Just try to read through them and absorb everything I can. I remember I used to get little books and I'd read through them. And like I said earlier, that's where I first saw guys like I think my first glimpse ever of Missing Link, Exotic Adrian Street, the Road Warriors, all came in this like wrestling book. And I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? So a lot of that stuff is interesting to grow up remembering that, because a lot of it's just flashbulbs. A lot of it's just like little quick memories. Me being in Michigan and seeing AWA on TV and seeing Mean Gene doing an interview. Don't remember what channel, don't remember what age I was. I just remember seeing it. My very first memory ever of Dusty Rhodes and Superstar Billy Graham, seeing the pictures in the magazines of the bull rope match and stuff. That was my very first ever introduction to wrestling, and I had no idea what wrestling even was until I saw that. So it's interesting, kind of how you remember things and how you, just grow up perceiving them and stuff. So I've been happy, as I've gotten older, to kind of go back and relive the history of some of these territories and learn about them a little bit, and learn their basic overall origin stories and what happened to them, and, how they rose to prominence and fell and the whole deal. And I like to know that stuff because I like to know where guys came from and got their starts and everything. Not everything was just WWE. And wrestling was pretty awesome here in the States. I mean, it was spread everywhere, no matter where you lived. You had wrestling within driving distance. If you're in the Northwest, you had it there. If you're in the South, you had it there. If you're in the Midwest, you had it there. Northeast, Southeast, everywhere, no matter where you lived, you could drive and get yourself to wrestling, and you probably had it on your television station somewhere in your local area. So, and a lot of people got different stuff. Imagine that. Imagine like all you guys reading, watching TV wherever you happen to live. If you live here in the United States, imagine if I lived in California, and if somebody's watching here in Wisconsin and you get a completely different promotion, and all we get to watch is the promotions are in our area, but I can't watch yours and you can't watch mine. We can only watch each other's, and then we discuss them. Like, how weird would that be? So it definitely was a different time, and it all changed the minute Vince Sr. started getting older, started getting sick, sold to Junior. That was it, man. Shit got nuts after that. But yeah, I think this was a fun stream. All in all, between the two streams, part 1 and part 2, we went 2 hours. So I guess that's pretty good. I want to thank Dre again. Dre, by the way, let me ask you while you're here, are you, because I would plugged social media for Dre, but he doesn't really have any. His initial message said that he doesn't really have anything to plug. So I would love to plug something if Dre had it. But are you Dre Horizon on Twitter? Is that you, or is that a different Dre? Is there multiple Dre's around here? Anyway, just wondering if that was you. I was going to shoot you a follow. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, Letterman had Kaufman and Lawler on. Yeah, and there's a lot of guys like talk show hosts that have always been wrestling fans. Oh, hey, we got a cat in the house. Hey, bud. How you doing, bud? That have helped, by being wrestling fans. And that's always a plus. Yeah, Vince killed the territories, but also, you got to remember it was cable TV that really did it, because had Vince not done it, somebody would have realized with cable TV, I can now offer my wrestling not just to my regional area, but to the whole country. So was it really Vince, or was it really cable TV? I think it was cable TV. Because Vince, a lot of people did not like Vince for what he did, but it just would have been somebody else. Somebody would have done it. Somebody would have seen the dollar signs and said, let's take this national, provided they had the funding behind them. So I guess if it's Vince, I'm glad that it was Vince, somebody that's got a wrestling family and not just some random business dude that ran into the ground or didn't know what to do or was in over his head or something like that. So I guess all in all, it could have been worse. But yeah, with Vince starting all of that in '83, changed everything. Unrecognizable today. Completely unrecognizable, even without the pandemic. Prior to fans not being there, the product's weird, structured differently, it's booked differently. Everything is different, literally. Everything. So, yeah. I appreciate you guys. I'm sure Vern did. Vern probably would have been one of the guys had he kept Hogan around and not lost him. And Vince Sr. wouldn't have sold to Junior and maybe sold to somebody else instead. Vern might have taken everything to the national level. Vern might have been the first to go national, along with the Crockett's and along with whoever took over for Vince Sr. You could have had still 3 major promotions wiping out the rest of them. That could have been where we were at too. And that would have been all bad. Now you got competition, and you might have seen guaranteed contracts start a lot quicker than they did. They might have started in the 80s. instead of, the 90s with Hall and Nash and stuff. So could have been a different business either way. Definitely would have been interesting. Yeah, in a way. Yeah, the indies are kind of the spiritual successor. I agree. They are. Just you know, just still also a little bit different. They're more alternatives, where all the territories they all they all recognize their world champion as the world champion. They all pretended they were the best, even though they knew better. Ah, yeah, WGN. That's some fun wrestling, and of course USA. No, Mock, I will not be live after SmackDown tomorrow. I will be at work, so you will not get me until Saturday. We'll predict Extreme Rules and all that stuff. So that's the plan. Ted Turner would have gone national. Ted Turner did go national. Ted Turner did when he purchased Crockett Promotions and turned it into WCW. They were national. They were touring. They're doing the whole deal. Actually, they didn't do house shows, but their pay-per-views and stuff. They were on TV nationally. Yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, I think I'm gonna bail out of here now. Who, New Jack's Heat and Smoky Mountain? Yeah, maybe we'll talk Smoky Mountain one time. Maybe I'll watch some great matches from back then, and we'll come up here and talk Smoky Mountain because they were a big part of the '90s. That's for sure. So, anywho, all right, guys, take care. I appreciate you hanging out tonight. Luckily, you're not gonna have to wait too long to see me. I will be back on Saturday. Still not sure what time yet. Probably 2:00 p.m. here on the West Coast, 5 p.m. on the East Coast. We'll talk about Dynamite and NXT from last night, which were both kind of sort of lackluster shows, but we had 3 title matches, and all 3 retained their titles, not surprisingly. So we'll discuss a little bit of that. Whatever happens tomorrow night on SmackDown, we'll get into that as well. Any wrestling news floating around, and of course, we'll predict Extreme Rules coming up on Sunday, and then we'll be hanging out Sunday as well to react to that. So I appreciate you guys hanging out tonight. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll catch you on Saturday. And Dre, thanks again, man. Peace.